Hello and welcome to the Lower Makefield Township Board of Supervisors meeting, March 17th, 2021. It is now 7:31. Today, if you are viewing the meeting on Facebook, YouTube, or the website, please be mindful that there's a 10-second delay. In order to call in for public comment, you dial the number 646-558-8656 and enter meeting ID 230-936-1902, followed by the hash or pound sign. And I'm going to pass the meeting to the chair.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, everyone. The meeting is called to order. I'd ask you all to join with me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. With that, we'll take the roll. Fred, are you here?
I am here.
John?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Thank you. And Dan?
Present as well.
Okay, and we are all here. Just a reminder that public comment will be taken on the agenda items as they occur. And with that, we are moving along to agenda item number 4, Barbara Ellison, proclamation. So, Kurt, do you want to?
Sure. So for those of you who've been around the township, you know that Barbara, longtime employee, retired in February. The time has come to an end. She had a lot of different roles in the township. We do have a proclamation. Suzanne, it won't take too much time. Would you like me to read it?
Sure. Okay.
This is a proclamation of the Board of Supervisors of Lower Makefield Township honoring Barbara Ellison. Whereas the limits of Lower Makefield Township are not bound by its borders or its location, but by the people who serve it, live their lives, and whereas the future well-being of the community depends on the determined responsibility and discipline of its people, and whereas Barbara Ellison began her career at Lower Makefield Township on a part-time basis on March 12th, 1990, on March 31st, 2003, Barbara Ellison became a full-time employee, was promoted to administrative assistant to the township manager on January 1st, 2013. Now, therefore, the Board of Supervisors of Lower Makefield Township enthusiastically thank Barbara Ellison, an outstanding employee, and extend our grateful appreciation to her on her 31 years of outstanding service to Lower Makefield Township. Wherefore, the proclamation this day adopted, it is directed that the township record shall record the following. Barbara Ellison was a devoted and loyal employee of Lower Makefield Township and did bring honor to herself and to the township for her 31 years of service. We wish her happiness and prosperity in her retirement and all her future endeavors. Adopted this day of March 17th, 2021.
Thank you. Yay, Barbara. Barbara was definitely a big help to all of us who are on this meeting, and we wish her, as Kurt says, nothing but joy and happiness in her next chapter. John, would you like to add something?
Well, yeah, Barbara has been just a tremendous asset to the township. She's wonderful to deal with and is super fast on response and stuff like that. And it's a significant loss to the community, but everyone deserves the right to retire. Just because you're a great employee doesn't mean you have to stay. So I thank her, and she was just great to work with in my time here. And so I miss her already. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, then moving along to agenda item number 5, COVID-19 update. Kurt?
Unless there's questions, I don't have an update for this evening.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, and then we're up to 6, community announcements. Monica?
Okay, so we have a lot going on in Parks and Recreation. Part of the digital recreation opportunities will continue. We're working right now also to provide a couple opportunities within the park system, so look out for those. I'll save the reminder for after. March 29th through April 1st, we're hosting extravaganza egg hunt throughout the township, throughout the park system. We're going to try and hit parks during practices or busy times. Just to let you know, there's big eggs out there with bigger prize, even bigger prizes in the golden eggs. And then there are some small eggs with just little prizes in them. So go ahead and look out during that week. And we'll be posting on social media, kind of letting you know what parks to look at or where to hit as far as eggs are concerned. We have over 1,000 eggs we'll be hiding throughout the week. We are also starting the 10K a day challenge. It started on Monday. We are leaving registration up through Friday. You'll just have to catch up on your steps, or hopefully you started logging already. Every participant will get a t-shirt. And if you complete the challenge with 420,000 steps or 10K a day throughout the challenge, you will get a medal at the end too. It is a custom medal. It's not just your standard medal. And then,
so it's not a participation medal.
It's not a participation. You actually have to complete the steps. Right now, I would like to thank our sponsors, Manor Care, ShopRite, McCaffrey's, and the law offices of Caitlin Files and Neighbors in Need, and the many, many residents who donated. We were able to put together these massive senior bags for about 80 seniors. We're dropping off throughout the township residents. They have all kinds of goodies in them, St. Patrick's related activities. They started going out early this week. And the seniors who are on the list to receive will be getting them probably through tomorrow. So look out for those. We'll hang them on your knob. We'll ring the bell, hang them on your knob, and then you can go grab them. But thank you very much to all of our sponsors who helped us put that together. And pool registration is still open. We're doing great. If you need to come in for anything, you just have to call in advance. Other than that, we're doing everything remote and online. If you have any questions about the pool, you can call our office 267-274-1105. And then if anybody has any calls, and I'll check. On this point, public can call in and give any community announcements, and I don't see any right now.
Don't worry, Jan's got his hand up.
I have one related. So back in 2019, I believe was the first annual Yes You Can 5K to benefit Pennsbury PTOs and Pennsbury students in general. Unfortunately, that was back in October of 19. Unfortunately, in 2020, due to COVID, like so many other things, they weren't able to hold it. But they've recently announced a Yes You Can virtual 5K. Being held between Friday, April 16th and Monday, April 26th. I would encourage anyone to do a Google search for it. The website is not a simple yesyoucan.org or something like that, but please do a Google search for the Yes You Can 5K if you're interested in a virtual 5K to benefit Pennsbury PTOs and students.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Anybody else? Kurt, are you on mute? Are you trying to say something? You're on mute. Well, Kurt says nothing. We'll let you say it when you get off mute. All right. So who's ever messing with Kurt's mic, please stop it. While we wait for him, we'll move along to approval of the minutes.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I'm going to be in a bit here, and I may have, if you'll give me a minute or so. I'm getting this picture forwarded to me that I had provided to the board about the sign that I had previously discussed with you all for our easement that you had asked, the chair had asked if I could share for this meeting that we'll be installing soon. So as soon as I have that, I'll maybe wave to you if I get muted unintentionally again, but I'd like to share that at least for the public to see that sign here in a second.
That'll be great. So as soon as you have it, we'll return to that. And otherwise, we'll move along to approval of the minutes. Item number 7. Is there a motion?
So moved.
So that's the minutes of March 3rd. Thank you, James. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Is there any discussion? Any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you, Monica. With that, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0. Anything yet? No. Oh, here it is. He's still on mute. It's St. Patrick's Day, not April Fool's Day. What is going on over there?
Maybe press your space bar.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can.
Excellent.
Can you all see that? I'm sorry, it's fairly big on the screen, but we hopefully will have this hung here in the next few weeks as the ground stabilizes, that this can be hung. Again, honoring Catherine Burke, and we're very excited to get this hung. It matches the other signs that we have in the township, and we're happy to do that very soon. I wanted the board and the public to be aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. It looks great. Okay, so with that, item number 8, treasurer reports. Fred?
Yeah, make a motion to consider the approval of the interfund transfers for February in the amount of $734,492.48.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Is there any discussion? Any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Thank you. And with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, and the warrant list for March 1st and March 15th in the total of $1,072,810.04.
Do I have a second for approval of the warrant lists?
Second.
Thank you, James. Any discussion? Any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Well, then with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, moving along to agenda item 9, consideration to award the base bid and alternates for the Edgewood Road Safety Improvement Project, AKA Sandy Run Mini Roundabouts.
The township received 3 bids for the project on March 8th, 2021. The low bidder was Harris Blacktopping Inc. in the amount of $545,977.50 for the base bid. And the alternate bid, they were the low bidder in the amount of $562,042.55. The bid packages were reviewed by the consultant Michael Baker International. They reviewed it. They had several project managers go through all the paperwork, all the qualifications. And of course, we're familiar with Harris Blacktopping because we just awarded our road paving program to them last month. And so we therefore recommend that the contract be awarded to Harris Blacktopping for the base bid and the alternate in the amount of $562,042.55.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Second?
Second.
Thank you, James. Is there any discussion? Yes, Dan.
Kurt or Dave, since we're using Harris and we just went through a process with them, where do they fall in the responsible contract ordinance in terms of having to review their data, their background information? Would that be something that could be, let's say, expedited, or would we have to go through the full month or so that's in the current?
This would, in my opinion, this wouldn't be a recurrent contract. However, that doesn't mean because of your familiarity with their work and their reputation that you couldn't include as an amendment to the motion to shorten the time frame for review by whatever time frame you think is practical.
Okay.
That would be appropriate.
I would generally want to. I like that approach for Harris, just because we literally just went.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. But that being said, this one, I have a couple reservations just about timing for this one, and this is by no means anything to do with the board or anyone that put this together. It's more just general frustration around trying to get this done and the timing of it for other things going on. Generally, I think if memory serves, there's a couple different risk items surrounding this particular, just awarding this right now. One of those is, I think the PUC is supposed to be coming to a conclusion on the Delcora sewer sale on the 26th of this month. And we know that deal is similar-ish to ours, just in terms of how it was set up generally. And that one has been recommended by the administrative law judges to not be approved. So I'm a little antsy in terms of what level of risk that puts on our budgets before we know on the 26th. So I'm sort of hedging here, that I'd like to know what that decision is to see what level of risk that may mean for us in the near term and how that may affect our long-term budget. At the same time, we just had that announcement about I think it was $3.2 million coming in. We don't know how we're going to be able to spend that. And that's from the, I forget what they call I'll call it the Biden plan, for lack of a better description. So that may offset it, but it leaves me a little uneasy about awarding it today. I would be more comfortable. I love the design. It accomplishes the goals. I should have said that up front. It's just I'm a little nervous about voting today to approve it when we will hear some new information that could set me completely at ease in about 10 or 12 days, I guess, or just make us have to not scramble but reconsider how we address certain things. At the same time, it's again my frustration here is not with the folks that put us in this situation, in that we're still not settled on this particular issue with our court case against them. We still have the outstanding several $100,000 quiet zone issue, that same group, and they're also the group that essentially defrauded our township, which I think we're all upset about. So, and which forces us to use bond proceeds that were originally set aside for sewer issues and open space acquisition for two projects that essentially we should have never had to pay for. And we haven't been made whole, but we're still trying to move forward. So I like the way the project was designed and the approach and all that. My reservation is about timing and uncertainty on some budget issues, just that we should know more about just in the next few weeks. So if anyone would be amenable to it, and if you could address it based on schedule, I would like to consider maybe tabling this for a final vote until our next meeting, which I think is on the 7th.
So Kirk, could you help address some of the issues that were raised in that?
Yeah.
Well, the financial issues, so a couple things. One, Ken is correct. There's outstanding litigation that, without disclosing too much, those demands that were put forth in part are going to be based upon the estimated cost of this project, or the actual cost of this project. So that's on pause until something is awarded to get that moving, with the inevitable goal of obviously recouping money for the taxpayers that would like to result in hopefully paying for a majority of what you all would be considering to approve. The second item is regarding the sewer sale, is respectfully to Supervisor Grenier's point, is even if the sewer sale tanked tomorrow or whenever, this is a separate pot of money. I hear what he's saying regarding being but conscious from a budget perspective. I certainly share that. This is money that is set aside in the bond fund. With his points notwithstanding, is our sewer surcharge is set to cover the costs of capital expenditures. We also make an assumption in those capital expenditures of an MMA contribution, as we go regardless. So I guess the only point I would make with Dan is even if we conclude the sewer sale isn't going to happen, this project is still sitting there. The money is sitting there for it. It wouldn't be like we could transfer that bond money, for example, to the operational component of the township, to the general fund to pay operations. It would be for capital investment, and at least the sewer plan that we put forth for 7 years is covered by the current surcharge. So that's my answer to that. In regards to the timing of things, I mean, as we know, we put forth a timeline that goes until right before school starts, which is the target. So it's a tight time frame. I understand Dan's question about if it's Harrison, we could make a motion to bypass that restriction. That would pare that down. That would be helpful if this is a direction the board wants to go. It's just, the PUC decision regarding the sale he's talking about, their next meeting is March 26th. I don't know that there's a guarantee that they're going to make a decision at that meeting. I think the assumption is they're going to make a decision at that meeting. So whether or not that gives direction at all on regards to hours or for this project, it's not for me to say. It's just one of the reasons I think we've been so diligent about creating specific distinctive pots of money is really for this purpose. So we know we have things dedicated for certain things. So I don't know if I answered all the questions there, but that's would be my thoughts about that.
If I could also weigh in, from what I know, I mean, I'm not going to say that I have a deep understanding of all the issues in the Delcora matter. There was an ALJ opinion that disapproved the sale based upon the objections of some of the municipalities. There's several contributing municipalities to this project over there. And from what I understand, since the judge's decision, any of the then objecting municipalities have reversed their decision. So all municipalities have agreed to allow the sale to go through. And the decision date, as of now, is supposed to be March 25th, which is, I guess, a week from tomorrow, which may or may not occur. So that's the information I have. I'm not going to say again that I'm intimately familiar with all the details, but I've been following it somewhat from afar. I'm sure some other people have as well.
John, I saw that you had put your hand up.
In general, I obviously reticent to spend money we don't have, but actually in this case, we just kind of made the point that the amount of money that we received from the Biden American Recovery Plan was so significant that it would dwarf any of the possible breakup costs if we lose the sewer deal. I mean, it's a significant sum of money that the federal government has put forth. And I think we can responsibly use that for infrastructure projects immediately and try and move things forward in that respect. So I remain significantly opposed to the sale of the sewer system because it was a profoundly bad decision financially for the township. And I am hopeful that it is resolved in a better way for the township. I do think that given where we're at, I think we're more than safe to continue with Sandy Run in this case. And I think that the buffer and even what I've read on potential litigation involving Biden American Recovery Act funds, nothing in there would preclude us from doing what we'll be planning to do with them. And I would think we would be more than okay. I mean, it's a very significant amount of money that was provided by the federal government. And we were very fortunate during COVID, so we didn't have the same impact that other municipalities had. As you know, many municipalities were relying on the earned income tax, and they just got crushed with COVID in their budget. And because we've never implemented one, and we've had a very stable revenue base, and I think that was a huge win for the township in terms of financial stability. So, in general, I think, respectfully, I think we could probably go through with this, with Sandy Run. It's been a long wait for folks, and I'm hopeful we can get it in before the school year starts.
Thank you, John. Fred, I saw your hand up.
Well, I mean, as John said, this is 4 years, in the making, with a lot of discussion. The money is is put aside for this project. As John said, thanks to the new COVID relief plan, we're going to get quite a windfall that would cover any shortfalls in other areas if we need the money, and if the sewer sale does not go through. So as far as I'm concerned, I would not hesitate to move this through.
Okay. Any other discussion? We'll move to public comment. Monica, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment on this topic.
Okay, well, with that, then we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
So I just said that the motion passes, but I'm going to have to ask a question because I was a little confused on the answer to where we stand. The next meeting of the board would be 3 weeks away based on the month's fall. Do we have to do some kind of amendment because of the responsible?
If you want to make a separate amendment to shorten the review period, either for the township or the public review period, or both, actually, if you want to. I have it here for other reasons because we're going to look at it tonight for other reasons. Jim, help me out. Our internal review period is 30 days and public's is 21. Is that correct?
Up to 30 days and the public is 21.
Right. So, I mean, if you want to consider modifying one or both of those, that this would be the time to do it if you want to do that.
Yes, Dan.
I'd like to make a motion to modify the responsible contractor ordinance specific to the review of the Sandy Run Road bid, to 14 days for both contractor review township review and public review, is in an effort to get this project done before school starts.
If I could just make a friendly amendment,
Sure, John.
subject to them, of course, passing the responsible contractor review for the road bid. And I'll second the motion.
So I'm not sure what the amendment was and if Dan has accepted it.
So the amendment would be that the timeline would be to 14 days, subject to Harris Blacktopping meeting the responsible contractor ordinance review for the Township Roads Program, which is going to occur before this.
I believe they already went through that review.
There you go.
Then I don't.
There you go. That was my question.
Yeah.
So
good.
Then I ignore your amendment.
I withdraw my amendment, and I second the motion on the floor.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Any public comment?
No public comment.
And then with that, call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye, raising the hand.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you all. This time, really done.
Suzanne,
Yes, sir.
can I make one point if I could?
Okay.
I really want to thank Joe Fiacco with this process. If you'll recall, this started with a review of a project that he expressed concerns about with the original design. And we were sitting there without clear answers on how we could even do sort of an interim approach this way to open that road. And, Joe came up with this idea quite some time ago, right when he was appointed as our traffic engineer, with a concept, even an estimated cost that he believed it would be somewhere between $500,000 and $700,000, which I think we're doing something. Supervisor Lewis, was the one that brought up the idea of trying to make this a little more aesthetically pleasing with the with the colored concrete and the roundabouts, even adding that on, Joe's price was right in line with what he had said a year ago where he thought this could be. So this was his thought process. This was his original presentation to the board. And I just want to thank him for that, because the reason we're approving this tonight was because we made him our traffic engineer and he had the insights to do this.
Along those lines, one of the things Joe did that was particularly helpful was the traffic modeling and visualization. And he took a very complex situation and found a very novel answer to it, and demonstrated why it would work. And that's, he definitely deserves credit for that.
Agreed. Okay, well, with that, moving on to agenda item number 10.
Yes, thank you, supervisors. Hooray for engineers.
It's your piece. I know.
You have within your packet my engineer's report. I am just going to dive right into I have no updates to the engineer's report, so I'm going to dive right into the agenda items here. The Caddis development, they have completed a majority of the work over there. There's some minor outstanding punch list items. There's some work that is required based on a television inspection of the sanitary sewer and storm sewer that was installed. But like I said, a significant amount of work has been completed. They posted an escrow of close to $1 million, and they have not requested a release of that money until now. So agenda item number 1 is to consider the escrow release number 1 for the Caddis development on-site improvements in the amount of $737,613.69. And I'll just state that there's over $140,000 remaining in that escrow for any outstanding items that are to be completed.
So moved.
Seconded by anyone?
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Is there any discussion? Yes, Dan.
There you are. Andy, those other, there's a significant amount of money left in escrow to address items. Can you very quickly summarize what those items are? Just because we've had some ongoing concerns, obviously, between neighbors and Caddis, and we just want to make sure that everything gets addressed.
So there's punch list items. Obviously the landscaping that was installed throughout the fall. We want to make sure that they are, when the springtime comes around and it's time for them to pop and germinate, that all of the landscaping that was planted on site has survived the winter. So that would be one reason why we're holding back escrow for that, for all the plantings on site. They have they've provided a televised video of the sanitary sewers and the storm sewers. There's some minor cracking in some of the storm sewer pipe that can be repaired with slip lining it or shotcreting it. Some of it is reinforced concrete pipe, some of it's high density polyethylene pipe. So this is pipe lining that can be completed. So we're withholding money for that. And then some minor punch list items are damage to the pathway, the bike path out in front along Oxford Valley Road, and the concrete curb along there. They need to repair that. There was some construction debris out along Oxford Valley Road and some cracking within the ADA ramp areas of the concrete that need to be repaired.
I'm not sure if Dan's done yet, please.
I'll be quick. And then how is the I'm assuming they've converted their sediment basin to active stormwater basins at this point.
We haven't received the notice of termination from DEP yet. So that's an outstanding item as well.
Okay. Only because, I think the EAC had, as you know, had significant concerns or comments about their design and some of the information surrounding it. So I just want to make sure that there's enough in escrow to address all those issues just in case we hear back from the DEP or have evidence that the stormwater system's not infiltrating, whatever is not working as was planned,
Right,
so that
yeah.
we have enough in there.
I will say that, that was part of the portion of the storm sewer system that was televised, and there wasn't standing water or a significant amount of sediment within the underground infiltration basins. So
Good.
That gave me a good feeling.
Okay.
Fred?
That's all I have. Thanks, Suzanne.
Okay. Fred, you had your hand up? You good? John? You're on mute.
First, Andy, I don't want Joe to be the only engineer that we share the love with this evening. I want you to know we appreciate you as well, and specifically your work in dealing with some of the challenges around Caddis. There's roughly about 200,000 left in escrow, right? It's 143 and 60.
Yeah, 143 for the on-site improvements, 63 for the Dobry Road improvements.
So we got a couple issues with the road, some pipe issues, planting. There's also a resident who's adjacent. I think I can pull up his address, 1667 Dobry Road. He has been waiting for his sewer connection. I think there's a big hole or something like that. That'll be handled before we have any of the stuff.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then on the lighting stuff, I think we've gotten improvement, but I haven't been back to see it, and I have not heard from anybody lately. So those are my main concerns. And I think 200,000 is probably enough to cover all of those, even a worst case scenario then. Is that your belief?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Not that I'm leading the witness, but thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else? And Monica, is there any public comment?
Yes, Lee is on the line.
Oh, okay. Lee, please state your full name and address for the record.
My name's Lee Pedowitz at 247 Truman Way in Yardley. And Chair Blundy, all members of the board, all members on the call. I hope everyone's well. I guess you could figure when Caddis was on the agenda, I had to put in my 2 cents, but nobody seems to be paying attention to that electrical issue that I brought up regarding where they mounted their switchgear, which is an apparent violation of the National Electric Code. And if I would appreciate it if somebody has justified why it's located there and how it conforms with the National Electric Code. I would like to see that, or have somebody talk to me or whatever, just to satisfy my concerns over the safety issue that its design and installation presents.
I'd be happy to reach out to Mr. Pedowitz and have a phone discussion with him regarding this matter.
That would be great, Andy. Thank you.
Okay, Andy, thank you. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, is there any other public comment?
Yes, Fred is on the line.
Great.
Please press *6, Fred, when you enter the room.
Fred, could you state your full name and address for the record? I actually don't see Fred yet.
Press *6.
Fred, please press *6 and then state your full name and address.
I'm here now.
And is Lee still here?
Yes, I'm Fred Falk. I live at 253 Truman Way.
Go ahead, Fred.
Fred, please press *6 again. I apologize. That was my error.
Okay, they unmuted me again.
You're back.
All right, I'm back. Calling on 2 points that you just began covering during the presentation, Andy, that Supervisor Lewis brought up as well. First, on the lighting, although they've made some improvements, as been discussed in many previous meetings, it still casts a glow into my house and onto my deck, which is not in compliance with what the ordinances are. And I was just wondering what more can be done before all the plantings grow sufficiently high enough to negate the glow of the lighting. And with regards to the plantings, there's already evidence of a number of the giant green arborvitaes dying. So how do they go about having the issue raised to them that they need to be replaced? So the lighting and the plantings, I have questions about.
Okay, so first, I don't know that I would agree with you in your phrasing of casting a glow within your house. I think we've been out on site. We've been at the property line and with a light meter several times, showed that no light is being cast into the backyards or off of the property. It's light observance. It's not light spillage.
So you saw, and I think Supervisor Lewis also saw, or Supervisor Weiss also saw, I'm sorry, when you're in my house, the actual reflection of the light on the walls of my house, in my bedroom, in my living room. It's there. It's the light is coming through the windows, and you can see the effect of it on the walls in the house and everything. It's not maybe measurable by your meter, but it's still something that is happening and that it's a concern. It is.
So light being cast onto the bedroom wall means that it is lighter outside than it is inside. It doesn't reflect anything from where the light is coming from, or so.
But before the street lights were put in the parking lot, there was no light cast into our house from that area. It's the difference between now and before.
The only thing I'll say is that they've provided a plan that was approved that showed, in accordance with the township ordinance, as far as casting light downwards, no spillage of light off of the property by measured light meter, and they've provided that. They've installed. They've painted the inside of a lot of the parking lot fixtures to ensure that the bulb is not seen, and also to assist in casting the light downward from the fixture. They've met the ordinance, and they've provided lighting in accordance with the approved plan and met the ordinance.
And yes, I agree. They've done a lot of work to help mitigate the lights, but there are some that they didn't do, and those are the ones that continue to cause issue with the lighting that's coming through. So it's just a matter of completing the job, I would assume, for the lights that haven't been addressed yet.
The lights that haven't been addressed yet are on the other side of the parking lot that are shining light towards they're on the north side of the parking lot and shining light south towards the parking lot.
Andy, the other point that he has raised is about the arborvitae. I don't know if I got that right. I'm assuming that if there is, in fact, something that has not survived the winter, that there's a process for making sure those are.
Yes, we will have if there's brown spots within the arborvitae, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're dying. That could just mean that they're dormant through the winter, and then once they get sunlight and some water within the spring, that they'll come back. We will have a landscape architect come out and review all of the landscape plantings that were done for the entire project, and anything that they see as diseased or dead will need to be replaced, and we're holding escrow for that work to be done. So it'll be similar to how we have a regular project punch list. It'll be a landscape punch list where they'll be required to replace any plantings that did not survive the winter.
All right, good. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something that we had to report first before you had someone come out.
Thank you, Fred. Understood.
Thanks.
Okay. Have a good night. And
Thank you very
Jan,
much.
you're welcome. Jan, did I see you raise your hand?
You did. I just didn't want to interrupt you. Andy, you made it about the replacement of the trees. We know they have to do it. When they replace the trees, green giant arborvitae grow rather quickly. I don't know. I can't remember what size they are back there right now. Are they obligated to replace something of similar size at the time that they've replaced it, or is there a minimum height that they have to put it in? Because trees grow at different rates, and when it takes a long time, they might have to get up to grow 10 feet to provide any benefit with respect to blocking the light. So curious what the details are on that.
It mostly comes down to availability at the nurseries. I believe 8 to 10 feet is what is typical of arborvitae that get planted. So if they were planting them, let's say at the end of the planting season in the fall last year, they weren't going to grow that much throughout the winter. So I think that a replacement tree required by our ordinance would be similar in size to what was provided.
Now can't unmute. Okay, so there's no further discussion and no further public comment. We'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Moving on to agenda item 2 is to consider the escrow release for the Caddis development. This is for the Dobry Road offsite improvements in the amount of $301,249.50. And again, we have about $63,000 in change left in escrow for any remaining work, which would be to the storm sewer pipe within Dobry Road, or also any surface cracking or adjacent work needed for Dobry Road.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Fred. Second?
Second.
Thank you, James. Any discussion?
The usual, Andy. Any major outstanding issues that give you concern?
No.
Okay. That's all. I just want to make sure.
Okay. Monica, is there any public comment on this?
No public comment.
Okay. Then with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. You're up to C, Andy.
Up to C, consider the advertisement for bid for the 2021 bike path maintenance project. You have within your packet I believe I provided an overview. This was aerial photography of the work that is being done for the bike path maintenance project. This would be in the area of Heacock Road and Stony Hill Road. It would be from Edgewood down to Stony Hill along Heacock, and then from along Stony Hill Road from Edgewood past. I'm drawing a blank on the roadway now. This would be the first road east from Peacock Road.
Esther Lane, maybe?
No.
Oh, east of Heacock.
Yes.
Melissa Circle.
I'm pulling it up now.
Melissa Circle, I believe it is.
Yeah, right near the,
Chestnut Woods Drive.
Okay.
So
right in the Massapequa Call.
the firehouse, fire company, Station 80, around the corner and then down to Chestnut Woods Drive. So we've put together specifications. The intent is to advertise early next week and put them up on PennBid and have a tentative bid opening on April 14th. And then thereby the board would be able to review the bids and possibly vote on that at the second meeting in April. So we would like to consider authorization to advertise for the bid for the 2021 bike path maintenance project.
So moved.
Thank you, John. Is there a second? Second by Fred. Any discussion? Any public comment, Monica?
There is no public comment.
Okay, then with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 11, project updates.
I don't have an update. We get some other things we can cover in the next meeting, but with how much we have to go on this agenda, unless there's a question, I don't have anything to report at this time.
There are no questions. Then we will move along to manager's report, number 12.
Thank you. The item before you is payment request number 1. I will add in the amount of $19,790.46. Blooming Glen Contractors for the Brookstone Pump Station Upgrade Mechanical Contract. That would be the consideration I'm asking. You did have a memo in your packet from Freddie Bird, our sewage engineer, that the amount of money remaining on the contract still is over $250,000. This payment is essentially for mobilization, setting up bypass pumping, and the demolition of the existing pump station. Again, asking for consideration for $19,790.46, payment number 1.
Is there a motion? Thank you, Fred. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, James. Any discussion? Dan, I can't see you. I'm going to assume you have no discussion. Monica, any public comment?
There is no public comment.
All right. Well, with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion carries 4-0.
I think Dan has a video and audio problem because he's both muted on both.
Well, we can revisit the vote when he comes back, if he'd like, or else, since it passes, we'll just move along. Anyone gets a text from Dan, please let me know so we can try to accommodate him. Okay, then agenda item number 13, solicitor's report.
Yes, briefly, the board met in executive session tonight, starting at 6:30. All board members were in attendance for either all or most of the executive session, along with Mr. Ferguson, Chief Caluzzi, Sewer Engineer Ebert, and myself. Items related to litigation, real estate, and informational items were discussed at the executive session, which concluded just before this meeting started. And that's my report about the executive session. First, under my report, the subcategory is to consider authorization of advertisement for amendment to the responsible contract ordinance. As we've discussed earlier in another context, the review period for what we've kind of designed as recurrent contracts is before the board in terms of what we'd request to be advertised. We presented a proposed ordinance with the amended language to the board for review. Just for the public's benefit, this is for the public review process and only for those contracts which are deemed recurrent. And just to go through the language very briefly, the review period prescribed in this section shall be reduced to a period of no more than 14 days for public inspection for those contracts that are recurring, for example, occur on a regular basis, such as annually. Such recurrent contracts include, for reference purposes only, and are limited to annual street and road resurfacing contracts and municipal pool repainting contracts. The initial determination as to whether a contract is recurrent will be made by the township manager upon the recommendation of one of the following individuals as applicable under the particular contract: Director of Zoning Inspections and Planning, Township Engineer, Township Sewer Engineer, or Township Traffic Engineer. We tried to bake into this what we could to be as definitive as possible, but also allow for flexibility, because we don't want to be too definitive in the sense that if we say only these things could be recurrent contracts, only these circumstances would define it. If something changes, we have to amend the ordinance, and that would require another advertisement, fees, legal fees, things like that. So we tried to be fairly flexible. So again, we're just asking for this to be advertised tonight, and then be considered at the next meeting.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, James, for the second. Any discussion? Monica, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, well, with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. The motion carries 4-0.
Thank you. The next item is the consider authorization of advertisement to accept bids for the Patterson Farm lease. This is something we've had a discussion about internally, and now publicly. There's also, I think, an agenda item later about the actual lease itself. We can either have that now or just authorize advertisement to accept bids. We have had some discussions internally about some slight modifications to the what we presented, and we can either discuss that now or discuss that later in the meeting, whatever the board's pleasure. So all we'd ask for now is authorization to accept the bids, and then we can talk about the process later.
Make a motion.
Thank you, James. Second. Thank you, Fred. Any discussion? Yes, Fred?
Just to make a clarification, that's a motion to advertise the bids?
Yes. Yes.
Advertising to accept bids.
Accept bids. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut up Dave. So talk about later. I guess the question is in the end, knowing how long meeting is going to probably go with the upcoming agenda items, those items, do we want to discuss those now in the event that that's not lingering?
Fine with me. Yeah. I mean, if that's the board's preference, I'm happy to do that.
Do we do it now that we have a motion pending, or do we?
Be appropriate for discussion. It'd be part of the discussion for the motion. If somebody wants to, I'll be happy to elaborate if that's the board's.
Please do, Dave.
Yeah. Okay. The Patterson Farm lease is soon to expire, based upon the 5-year term. Based upon, a lot of input from township staff and different directors of different departments, as well as supervisors. We've decided to make it a little more flexible, a little more, for lack of a better term, progressive in terms of the type of either farming techniques or crops to be produced. Some of the things we put in the notice to bidders, and this again was a team effort, included special consideration to be given to proposals that include one or more of the following: sustainable crops, farming crops that address food insecurity issues in local communities. Also, as of our discussion tonight, crops that would promote local farm to table and the local sale of such products. And then also promoting best practices as demonstrated by the Penn State Extension or some other similar entity regarding practices as forage and food crops, controlling insects, pests, and diseases, stormwater management, runoff issues, and crop selection rotation. What we hope to do with this, and then also have some terms in the lease which reflect this as well, is to, again, promote flexibility and also the type of farming that would reflect well on the community with respect to the types of crops that hopefully could be sold at some of our local either supermarkets or even some of the food or farm stands that are in the area, to kind of show the interaction between farming and the community, and frankly to promote the idea of farming within the community. So that's really the purpose of those. I appreciate the contributions of Mr. Ferguson, Mr. Majewski, Mr. Hucklebridge, and then, of course, the supervisors tonight to provide some helpful insight and ideas into the final product, which we would have here. So,
Is there any other discussion from the board, or Kurt, anything you wanted to add?
This is approved by the board this evening. The specs will appear on the website tomorrow. We have the necessary ads in place to fulfill bidding requirements. The time frame essentially to put a proposal together will be approximately 30 days. The lease that we currently have expires at the end of April. The current tenant on the farm is, I think, well thought of. Sent an email out to the board outlining all of the things that they do, which is probably even more expansive, I think, than many of the board members and myself realized. The lease does expire April 30th, so we'll be looking to make an approval at the second April meeting. As I think, as Dave had talked about, while there's a current 5-year lease, there's an option now to bid or to put to quote 5 years and 10 years.
Right.
Will be that possibility for the current tenant as well to do that. So that will be on the website probably by mid-morning tomorrow, and we seem to have everything in place.
Okay. Yes, Dan.
Sure. I just want to say thanks to staff for taking this approach. I think from a purely keeping farmers farming approach with the 5 and 10 year options, I think that's a great approach to farming is no easy task, and it takes some time for farmers to get established on and get to know the land, as it were, and to get things moving so they can be profitable. So a 10-year option is nice to see, provide some stability. Some of the other stipulations or items that were added to both the lease and the invitation to bid with respect to, I'll call it local content, where we're looking to consider folks that grow and then sell their produce locally, and a variety of items. Those are nice things to see in there. In addition to the various conservation measures that we've added to this, I think it's a nice approach, a balanced approach that addresses many current and probably future farming issues. That it also provides some flexibility for whoever is the eventual winner to manage the farm as makes sense within those general parameters. And I know I tried to pull up I'll call that the red line or track changes version, so I can see what I'm looking for here. But Dave, there are a couple items in here that we had talked about potentially, or we had pointed out that we might potentially want to edit. If one item seems to be sort of, I'll say duplicative or maybe redundant a little bit.
Within the lease itself, you're correct.
Within the lease itself, thank you. So in my mind, that's you could do that without anyone having to make a motion for that. Is that for that particular issue? And I'm trying to, I think it's K, but I could be wrong.
That would be subparagraphs F and H.
F and H, thank you.
And then subparagraph K talks about Patterson Farm Conservation Plan. And after the executive session, before this discussion occurred, I did pull up the conservation easement, that language. What I would suggest is that subparagraph, which will be relettered because of F will probably be removed because of H's preference, frankly, is that we have a paragraph that talks about the lease will and the lessee will conform to all the requirements set forth in the agricultural conservation easement that was entered into in, I believe it's I'll have to look at the date, 2018. But it's certainly something of record. And frankly, as I looked at it, first of all, the conservation easement was imposed after the current lessee was here. And obviously the current lessee did nothing to violate any of the terms of that, but that would be something that's important to know. Plus, the conservation easement does talk in terms of the types of crops, frankly, that would be consistent with what we're talking here, including, besides field crops, fruits, vegetables, horticultural specialties, and then some other items that would be all consistent with what we talked about here. So it'd be my recommendation that paragraph be modified to reference the conservation easement itself.
Okay. So with that, I'd like to make suggest a friendly amendment, as it were, for the current subparagraph K, whatever. I believe that'll probably go to J in the future. Okay, I know my alphabet. Yeah. That we change the reference to the Patterson Farm Conservation Plan to the applicable conservation easement as directed by our solicitor. Moving forward.
Fred, I think you were the mover, the original maker of the motions. Do you accept that amendment?
I agree with what Dan says, but I don't know if there's a need for amendment since we're just advertising for the bids. So,
if I could interrupt, but for purposes of at least agreeing on what goes out as part of the advertisement, I think it helps that we have this in there. And it doesn't mean that things can't be tweaked after we advertise. If we come back, there's something else we'd like to change. But it'd be my recommendation. I can make these changes tonight. I can, after the meeting, I'll dictate the changes. My assistant will make them. She's very, very efficient and can get them over to Kurt in the morning so that it can be posted on the website after he and Jim and Greg review them, just to make sure they're consistent. So,
just for clarification, I think I made the motion, not Fred.
Oh, okay. I thought Fred made it and you seconded it, but
no, I think I made it and Fred seconded it.
Okay, my apologies. Would you accept the friendly amendment?
I think if Dave, if you're willing to make those changes, I'm okay.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Yep. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I agree as far as.
Okay, thank you both. Thanks. So then, do we have an amendment? We have an acceptance. So we're gonna. Any more discussion? Any public comment? Then with that, let's call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended, please indicate by saying aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Next, for me to comment on or to present, there are, I believe, 4 zoning hearing board matters, before the board for consideration tonight. First, John and Amanda Mohan have an application for the property located at 892 Duchess Drive, requesting a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23B in order to install a small laundry room / mudroom addition, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 18.7% to 21.6%. Where 18% is the allowable amount. Again, I believe there were some mitigation measures in the application. Even if not, the zoning hearing board is very conscientious about imposing those as a condition in applications such as this. So unless there's a contrary sentiment, we recommend deferral to the zoning hearing board. Hearing no contrary sentiment, the next one, Robert and Kathleen Widmer have an application for property located at 913 North Pennsylvania Avenue. And they are requesting a variance from the Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23A in order to install an in-ground pool with decking, a pool house, and a shed, which would increase the impervious surface from the existing 18.41% to 21.64%, where 18% is the allowable amount. Again, mitigation measures, I'm sure, will be imposed, if not volunteered already, unless there's and this is not, none of these are in the flood zone, by the way, according to the information we have from from Katie McVan, who's very helpful in providing this information. So unless there's a contrary sentiment, we recommend again that the township or the board defer to the zoning hearing board. Next, William Harn has an application for property located at 1131 Lily Pond Lane for requesting a variance from the Township Ordinance 200-51.B4 sub B in order to install a split rail fence within the wetlands. This would be primarily an access issue. In most cases, whether it's in this circumstance or like the next one, which is in the stormwater easement, we usually see efforts by the zoning hearing board to ensure compliance with access issues and to make sure that, especially in the wetland situation, there's no further disturbance or other, I guess, basically invasion that would cause any other runoff or any other problems or any problems within the wetlands themselves. So again, we recommend deferral to the zoning hearing board, again, unless there's a contrary sentiment.
Go ahead, Dan.
So, Dave, this is generally considered regulated action by both the Army Corps of Engineers and the Pennsylvania DEP. You know, you have to generally provide a public need and good for impacts, dredging and filling of wetlands. Putting a split rail fence doesn't usually meet that requirement. I don't quite understand. I'm trying to look at the neighborhood, and I don't see how far back the wetland is from the house.
It's hard to see in the information we had. I'll help.
Yeah, I don't know if they had a delineation or whatnot, or what type of wetland it is. But the description doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense to me, because they should have to go through a couple different levels of review to get approval for that. You know, the township doesn't have the right to grant approvals for impacts to wetlands. You know, they also have to go to the state and federal government to do that. And I don't see anything that says that they've already done that. So we don't want to give them the feeling that we're approving something that we don't have ultimate authority on.
You'd like us to participate so that we can at least enable us to contact the appropriate authorities to see what that, and also to review the application and the specifics to make that determination. We can certainly do that if that's the board's wish, and they may be appropriate to do that in this particular circumstance.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to participate in this one.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Any public comment? And with that, sorry?
There is no public comment.
Thank you, Monica. Okay, then with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Motion
Okay, and
carries.
finally, this next application is similar to two, I believe, that we had at the last meeting. In fact, same neighborhood. William Maloney is making an application for property located at 1240 Silver Stream Drive, requesting a variance from the Township Zoning Ordinance 200-69.A 14 sub C, excuse me, in order to install an open rail black aluminum fence within a stormwater easement. And we had a similar situation last meeting, I think one or two, and the sentiment was to defer, but also because we've had several of these in the past. Zoning hearing board, again, is very vigilant about addressing these issues, especially for access purposes. But I'll defer to the board if they have other sentiments.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, this one is relatively close. I don't know if Jim's there. Is this yard backs up to a floodplain? I don't know if it reaches all the way to it or what the elevations are there. It backs up to that pond that we talked about last meeting that has the aerator or the fountain in it. So it might be one we want to participate in, just to keep an eye on it. See where they're putting the fence. Jim, do you have any comment? I'm just looking at the FEMA map, and it's really close.
Yeah, it is not in the FEMA regulated floodplain.
Okay. Then I defer, similar to what we did last time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here, no other sentiment. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Well, then we're on to agenda item number 15. We're all there. Zoning, inspections, and planning. Stony Hill Road, Investors Bank.
Yes, if they could bring in the applicant, Dennis, he can present what they're proposing to do, and I will bring that up on the screen for everyone's benefit. Dennis, if you want to unmute yourself, and then you could.
I believe I just did. Do I need to wait for you to pull up the stuff on the screen?
There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, board members or commissioners. My name is Dennis O'Hara. I'm Senior Vice President with Compass Sign Company, located in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. And we have been hired by Investors Bank. They are taking over or acquiring the Berkshire Bank location on Stony Brook Road. And our plans were approved by the historic HARB 2 weeks ago. What we plan to do is remove existing signs and install similar signs. The sign that you see on the screen are non-illuminated Berkshire Bank letters. We plan to go back with new Investors Bank letters with their corporate seal, which is a two-color weave. These are not illuminated and will be installed in the same area as the Berkshire Bank letters are presently. Any questions on sign number 1?
Supervisors, does anyone have any questions? I'm having a hard time seeing everybody, so go ahead, Dan.
And I'm wondering, because this was discussed at HARB, and HARB, I'll just add that HARB didn't have any issues with it. But the pending question, and I don't know if the gentleman was able to find out, but we're all still trying to figure out what the green weave means, if there's any symbolism there.
I was unable to find that out, and I apologize, but
you did send me on a Google search after the HARB meeting, and I couldn't find it either, so I'm not going to hold that against you.
All right, but I'll talk to the bank, and if they have no issues, I'll get back to Jim with the explanation of the design of the weave.
Appreciate it.
Are we going to ask also about the lowercase I? Because, whoa.
That's part of their branding, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yes, John.
Yeah, I believe that's the first Investors Bank branch in Pennsylvania, but I might be incorrect. And Berkshire was from, obviously, the Berkshires of Massachusetts. So they were an innovative bank, and they still continue to operate. We certainly welcome Investors Bank to the community. I think they're going to do a fine business. The deal with Berkshire really will help them bulk up in the Trenton metro area for them to get some scale. And we always want competition in banking markets. Just for full disclosure, I've never worked with Investors Bank before. I have been a competitor of theirs in many years ago and worked for many of them, but I do welcome them to the community. And I'm excited to have them here, and the sign looks just fine to me. And I'm not an amateur graphic designer, so I make no comments on the lowercase I.
Well, it draws attention to the name Investors, and I believe that was the cause. And I would like to say that I think you'll be very, very happy with Investors Bank. They're extremely community-oriented. They get involved in a lot of programs that are beneficial to the community and different programs throughout the community. They're a great organization.
So with that, is there a motion?
Well, do we want to review the balance of the signs? Or do we want to?
Yes, no, let's go through the whole thing. I'm sorry. My apologies.
Okay. Sign number 2 is the lettering above the front entrance to the bank. Berkshire Bank's letters are not illuminated. Investors Bank letters will also be non-illuminated. We're taking up basically the same square footage as what's there presently. And if there's any restoration that's required once we remove the Berkshire Bank letters, that will be taken care of so that there'll be no scars left to be visible. That's sign number 2. And if we could move on to the rear of the bank, identical, the same thing, remove existing Berkshire Bank letters and install new Investor Bank letters, non-illuminated. And I believe there's one more sign that exists, which is a single face wayfinding directional. We're just going to cover the existing face with a new face, finished in brushed aluminum with black lettering and the multicolored green weave. Same size as existing. And that's pretty much it.
Dan.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness for 706 Stony Hill Road, Investors Bank signs.
And the minute should reflect we got the I wrong. Go ahead, John.
I second the motion on the floor.
Thank you. Any discussion? Yes, Dan?
Yeah, I'll just, for the board's information, the same gentleman came in front of the HARB just last week. The HARB asked some questions similar to the questions that I think Supervisor Blundy and I both asked, and voted unanimously to recommend approval as well. So just another data point for the board as we consider this motion.
Thank you. Anyone else? Monica, is there any public comment?
There is no public comment.
Okay, and with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye and raising your hand.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Welcome Investors Bank to Lower Makefield Township.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay. 15B, consider preliminary / final subdivision and land development plan for Prickett Preserves at Edgewood.
Okay, just one moment while we move everybody in.
Okay. Thank you, Monica.
Everyone's in.
Okay. We have a pretty full panel there.
Yes. Thank you. My name's Steve Harris. I represent the developers, the ELU DeLuca Yardley LLC and Shady Brook Investors LP. As you said, we've got a large group with us tonight, so that if there are any questions, they can be answered. I'm here with Vince DeLuca and Bob Dwyer, representing the two entities that are developing Prickett's Preserve at Edgewood. Our engineer, Bowler Engineering, we have Bill Reardon, Jason Korzak, George Bongard, and Travis North. Representing our planners, we have Seth Shapiro, Lauren Moran, and Matthew Koenig. And finally, from our traffic engineer, Chris Williams. We really have a rather brief presentation this evening. First of all, with regard, let me say that with regard to the request for a waiver from the fee in lieu of tree replacement, we're withdrawing that request for a waiver, and we'll work with the township to compute the appropriate fee in lieu of. So that waiver is being withdrawn. In addition, with regard to the review letters from the township's consultants, Raymond and Bernick, Ebert Engineering, and SAFE, they are all will comply. With regard to the comment, the latest comment from the EAC regarding the engineered soils in the detention basin, Bill Reardon will comment on that and the reason and point out that we're in full compliance. With regard to the Historic Committee, we can continue to commit to working with the committee to rehab, or I guess the better word would be actively reuse the historic house and the historic barn. We're in the process of doing full archaeological and architectural reviews, which will be submitted not only to your HARB, but also to the Pennsylvania Historic and Museum Commission, because they all have to be approved by the commission. So we're continuing to work on that. With regard to the issue of parking, as you'll hear from our presentation, although we're keeping the same parking as we've indicated all along, you'll find that we will be installing a significant amount of pervious paving. And finally, with regard to the Bucks County Planning Commission review, they basically raised the same issues that they've raised in prior reviews, and we've already commented on. So we're not going to spend any time discussing that. What I'd like to do is call on Seth Shapiro, our planner, and we're going to have a brief PowerPoint presentation, but we're only going to address items that have changed since the PowerPoint presentation 2 weeks ago. We're not going to go back and relive the whole thing. We just want to show you some of what we think are significant improvements that have been made as a result of meetings with township staff and the township's consultants. When Seth completes his review, we'll call on Bill Reardon. Bill will, number one, comment on the engineered soils issue, and then review the 4 waivers that we're requesting. As I say, the 5 have been reduced to 4 because we're withdrawing the request for a waiver from the fee in lieu of tree removal. And he will, probably repeating myself, explain why we're in compliance with the engineered soils issue that was raised by the EAC. At the conclusion of those discussions, as you pointed out, Chairwoman, we'll have all of our consultants here prepared to answer any questions that are raised or that the Board of Supervisors want to request. At the conclusion of that, I assume that you'll have public comment. When we're finished with public comment, we need to schedule our conditional use hearings. We're proposing that those be on April 7th for the conditional use for the pharmacy and the conditional for the drive-in at the pharmacy and the conditional use for the drive-in at the bank. And then we're going to request that you approve the plan, a preliminary plan. It's the final plan subject to compliance with the consultant's letter and the requirements that we obtain the conditional use approval for the 2 uses that I said, and we're looking to have the hearings on those 2 conditional uses at the next meeting, which I believe is April the 7th. So with that introduction, if I could ask Seth Shapiro to quickly go through our slide presentation of basically the revisions that have been made since the last presentation.
Hi, good evening. The obligatory question, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Great. So I'm Seth Shapiro, Principal Director of Planning and Urban Design for Barton Partners. We've been in front of you several times. I'm going to very quickly go through just some of the the revisions and changes we've made based on the feedback we've received. So first thing, so this is the revised illustrative plan of the project, and we're going to show a couple changes here. Actually, you'll see a connection link here, a pedestrian path, which we think is actually a real amenity for these residents here and for the community itself. We still have the multi-use path down here, but there's now a connection up to Stony Hill Road. And that's important because it really starts to complete the pedestrian network here. And the real change has to do with what's going on Stony Hill Road and how we're having that pathway cross Stony Hill. I'm actually going to ask Chris Williams to speak to this just a little bit. These are his drawings of what that path will look like. So, Chris?
Great. Thank you, Seth. Good evening, everybody. We'd like to provide you with an update with regard to the path along Stony Hill Road over 295. You'll recall the last time we were in front of you, we were proposing a path connection, as we still are, from the apartments to Stony Hill Road. And then we were proposing a mid-block crossing in that location to meet up with the existing path on the south side of Stony Hill Road. And then it would continue to the east over 295 towards Edgewood Village. So that plan has changed. We are now proposing to build an entirely new path solely on the north side of Stony Hill Road. And that's shown in this bright orange color. And that new path on the north side will also include a new crossing at the intersection of Township Line Road and Stony Hill Road on the other leg, the north leg. There we go. So we're proposing a new crossing of Stony Hill Road that will provide a direct connection from the new trail over to the west side of Stony Hill Road, and then it provides a nice convenient connection to Shady Brook Farm. And that's a crossing that would occur at a signalized intersection. All new pedestrian facilities, as shown on this plan and the next plan, are depicted in the bright orange color, by the way. So this, not ready to change just yet. Seth, you can go back. So this path will stay on the north side of Stony Hill Road in this area. We are still proposing the direct connection to the apartments. And we are still proposing the median in the middle of Stony Hill Road, and that's shown in green. And the intent of that is to act as a traffic calming feature and as a welcoming gateway feature for traffic headed into Edgewood Village. So, how do we make this all fit? We are dealing with some tight constraints. We have grading on the north side of Stony Hill Road due to the detention basin in that area. There is guide rail on the north side of Stony Hill Road. So, it is difficult to make this all fit, but what we're doing is we are shifting Stony Hill Road to the south. And in doing so, we would remove and replace the existing path that exists today on the south side of the road. So we will be exchanging the existing path on the south side of the road to now have an entirely new path consistently on the north side of the road. We can go to the next slide. So this slide shows the path continuing on the north side of Stony Hill Road, continuing over the 295 bridge. We are continuing to show the physical barrier between the path and the travel lane over the bridge. So that's not any different. The concept is the same. What's different now is that it's all been shifted to the north side, but the concept is still the same. Once the path crosses the bridge, once we get to the east side of the bridge, the path would continue along Stony Hill Road, and it continues to the western, the little inset on the lower right corner of the slide. So the path would continue to the westernmost driveway of the Artist Senior Living Facility. At this driveway location, you'll all recall that Stony Hill Road in this area was changed when the Artist development came in. There are medians in this area. The speed limit on Stony Hill Road is reduced. It's 35 miles an hour in this area. So what we're doing is we're crossing the path from the north side of Stony Hill Road to the south side of Stony Hill Road at this location, at the location of the median. We would have an ADA compliant crossing of Stony Hill Road at this location. And then from there, the path would continue on the south side of Stony Hill Road, tying into the existing sidewalk that was recently constructed by the Artist Project, and that's shown in that darker red color. So again, the concept is the same as what we described previously. What's changed is we've shifted it to the north side. It's now a continuous path on the north side of Stony Hill Road, provides a very nice, convenient, direct connection to the signal at Township Line Road and Stony Hill Road, and it provides a direct connection over the 295 bridge. This concept is developed based on coordination we've had with the township thus far. We will continue to work with the township with regard to the design and the review of this new pedestrian solution. And again, I would just remind everybody that because Stony Hill Road is a state road, we will also be working with PennDOT to obtain their approval as well. And that's all I wanted to share with you this evening.
And you have a question?
Yeah, real quick on if you can stay on this slide. Actually, this is interesting on the inset slide. So, can you describe the ADA compliant crossing there? I can't. It's a little small on my screen, so I can't quite tell what's in the middle. Is that going to be signalized or be something a little different?
Yeah. So today, what we have today is a raised median in the middle of Stony Hill Road. What we would provide as part of the concept. The concept would be to have an ADA compliant handicap ramp on the north side of Stony Hill Road, on the south side of Stony Hill Road, and then we would need some kind of a transition, an ADA compliant transition through the median to complete that connection. So when I say ADA compliant, it's with regard to ADA ramp design.
Ramps. And do you know if PennDOT on their roads, if they would allow for, I don't know what they call the crossings, but the ones that beep and have lights that go off? Just because we're so close to Artis, there may be some folks that if they do want to cross, may take a little longer to cross the 35-mile-an-hour road. I'm just curious about how to do that safely. Generally, I like all the concepts you put out here. I'm just concerned about this location a little bit.
Yeah, traditionally you would see the accessible pedestrian signals with, the beeping tones or, the audible walk, don't walk indications. Usually they occur at traffic signals. You wouldn't typically see it in this location unless a flashing signal or some kind of a traffic signal were installed as part of this crossing. Because it's not a traffic signal under all conditions, the pedestrian does have to yield the right of way to moving traffic. So what's of most significant importance in the design of this crossing is that there's adequate sight distance, which we believe there is. We're a considerable distance away from the bridge over 295. What I like about the crossing at this location is a potentially slower moving pedestrian. I think most pedestrians will be able to cross in one movement, but if someone were not able to do so, they do have the advantage of the refuge from the median to complete a two-stage crossing if necessary. So, I do think this is a superior location for the crossing for a variety of reasons. But to answer your question, traditionally you would not see the audible indicators or flashing indicators in this situation because the signal is not proposed. Again, we will be submitting this to PennDOT. We'll see what they have to say about this, but at the present time, it's not proposed. We don't believe it's necessary, but we'll continue to monitor the PennDOT reaction to the concept.
Yeah, I've had to do them in tourist towns where there are no signals existing, but they want to add a little more. Is that Suzanne, is that a raised median there? I can't remember.
It is, yes.
Okay,
it is.
That does help. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so this would be considered. This would not be a mid-block crossing. This would be considered a crossing at an intersection which I think is better for the design. It's occurring at a driveway intersection. You tend to have a little bit more attention to some of those the features you mentioned when it's a mid-block crossing, which is maybe less expected.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. So one of the questions that we had last time had to do with where rain gardens were and where pervious paving was located. So we went ahead and actually diagrammed that on top of the illustrative plan. So the yellow sort of dotted or dashed lines are indicative of pervious paving, whether it's the pathway along Stony Hill Road or in the parking areas here and here, as well as back here and here and here. The rain gardens, I think there are 14, if I'm not mistaken, are located here in the red. So that hopefully that makes clear. Actually, there's also some pervious parking back here. I hope that makes clear where those exist on the plan. We also had a discussion about this space here. So this is a perspective rendering looking down into that main open space with the house and the barn here. And the idea here that this might not be curbed, that the idea that it might be special paving, and that during special times, this could be closed off. So we actually did a rendering for that. And so there's that idea. That, you know, that whole space. And now what that does is it really sort of expands the open space even further. So hopefully that is a good depiction of that. We also talked a little bit about fencing and the idea of maybe some kind of split rail or historic fencing. So remember, this was a view looking into that open space, into that existing array of trees with that pathway just behind us. We did this other rendering, which is a little bit further to the north of that pathway and adding in that fence. And actually one of the rain gardens is actually existing here. And this is also an interesting shot because you see, you know, the proposed retail buildings, the existing brick house, and off in the distance, you can actually see the Wegmans. So this should give you a pretty good idea of what that pathway and what that fence could really feel like. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the residential architecture. The last time we had shown just a flat two-dimensional rendering, not even a rendering, just a drawing of the elevation that was based on these building types that exist in New Britain and exist actually in a lot of places. So what we did is we went ahead and modeled that building in 3 dimensions. And, you know, again, we're trying to create a unified theme here. I like to call it sort of farmhouse chic, if you will. You can see sort of the white clapboard and the fieldstone and the black window frames. I think this fits in quite nicely and quite elegantly with the rest of the architecture in the community. So those are the main gist of the changes that we've made. I'm happy to keep this drawing up or stop sharing my screen and we'll go from there.
Do any of the supervisors have any questions at this time? Fred, can you go?
Yes, or Chris. The only question I have is about the new pathway. So the reason why you would have to get rid of the pathway on the south side is because you're actually shifting the road.
Correct. Yes. So when the idea was presented to keep the path entirely on the north side of Stony Hill Road, it presents a little bit of a challenge because we're dealing with grading issues on the north side with the basin. So in order to fit that path in that area, we actually have to shift the curb line and move the road slightly to the south. It ends up becoming a much bigger project than we originally anticipated. We think it's a better project, but in order to make it work, it is at the expense of the existing path on the south side, which really, you know, is not in great condition today, but also I think what's more important with the existing path is it sort of terminates into the edge of Stony Hill Road and then doesn't go anywhere, and you're sort of left kind of stranded at the 295 bridge. So in an ideal situation, we'd like to get as much of the pedestrian traffic over to the path on the north side, and then at that point they have a safe connection over the bridge and then continuing into Edgewood Village. But unfortunately, yes, it was in order to make that work, it was at the expense of the path on the south side.
Okay, so having the pedestrian pathway on the north side, it looks like it's a narrower path than it was on the south side. And if that's the case, what are we going to do about bikers? Are we going to have a bike lane painted onto the surface of the road, or is there some accommodation? Because I'm sure that with a development like this, not only will we have walkers, we'll have bicyclists.
Yeah. So if Seth, if we can go back to the path plan. The next one. So yes, we are showing it. So the existing path that exists in sort of that bright red going down off the bottom of the page, the path in that area is already narrower than what was the path that we're now eliminating on the south side of Stony Hill Road. So it's sort of going. It was 8 feet. The existing path was 8 feet. What we're showing is about a 6-foot path which matches the existing path as you head south on Stony Hill Road. We can look to maximize that width as much as possible. Again, we're squeezed because of the need to provide the path between the edge of the road and the guide rail and the basin on the north side. So we are certainly squeezed in that area, and we do need to provide a buffer between the path and the edge of road. So all that to say, as a 6-foot path, it is, technically a path, which is primarily intended for pedestrians. I can tell you in other townships that I represent, they've built 6-foot paths and they work just fine for, families and bicyclists and pedestrians. So even though it is only 6 feet wide, there's nothing precluding a cyclist from technically using it. If the township were so inclined, in this concept, we could stripe the roadway with the share the road, the Share-O concept, so that your more experienced A-level type bike riders could choose to stay in the road, which is what happens on the other side of 295. So as you get to the other side of 295 in Edgewood Village, in that case, it actually goes down to a 5-foot sidewalk. And that's what was built in front of Artis. So it is only 5 feet. So in that case, it truly is a sidewalk. And what was intended there is, and what we have today through Edgewood is a on the road, share the road situation with bicyclists. So we could match that concept on the west side of the bridge as well.
Thank you, Chris.
Fred, if you're finished, Dan, I think, had questions. Was it John?
Yeah, I did, but I can go whenever.
Okay, then Dan, I think it's you.
Okay. Thanks, Fred, for asking that question, because that was my first one too. Let's see. So, curious. Can you pull up the image you had with the rain gardens and the pervious areas? That was helpful, please. There you go. Thank you. Quick question: when you run your numbers, what is your overall percent impervious for the site?
So the site right now sits at just over 63%. We're at 63.6% impervious for the entire site.
Okay. And are you? I wasn't clear if you were taking credit for the pervious pavement areas or not in that 63.6.
We are not. We're not taking credit for it on impervious, nor are we taking credit for it in our stormwater management volume control analysis.
Okay, that's. I guess I'm curious as to why not, but you don't. If you don't have an answer, that's fine too. But do you know what it would be if you did take credit? Just out of curiosity.
I do not.
Okay.
And primarily because the stormwater management system that was designed and submitted to Bucks County Conservation District and was approved as part of the NPDS did not have those measures originally. So they're not part of the approved NPDS permit, but they are added measures, obviously, since the many iterations that we've done since then, and trying to address the concerns that were presented by not only the Planning Commission, but the EAC. So these are essentially added safeguards that will help mitigate stormwater above and beyond what is already a compliant approach.
So, and you answered actually a couple of my questions without knowing they were coming, just by your answer. So, excuse me. So, by the ordinance, you have up to 65%. You're saying you have 63.6. In reality, it's probably a couple of percentage points less than that, based on how our other ordinances work with respect to pervious pavement. All that's very good. I believe some of your similar developments in the area may have higher percentages than you. I don't know if you did that analysis of other grocery store areas or other I'll say other similar developments that have similar uses to see what their percent is. But I have a feeling they're a little bit higher than you in some cases. Do you know that by any chance?
We have looked at both the Giant and the McCaffrey, and those are probably around 68 to 70% impervious, which is obviously higher than what we are proposing here.
Okay, it's good just for reference to understand that. And then you just said it. You have your NPDES permit approved, which obviously includes the stormwater review. So as part of it, I don't want to speak for you here, but as part of that review, I saw the EAC comments about the PCSM worksheet and whatnot. But as part of that review, the Conservation District does review the PCSM worksheet that is standard to DEP that gets updated every month or so. Just used it myself recently, and have gone through those reviews. So they're usually pretty good about reviewing that. I don't know if all the other stormwater type questions that Remington Vernick and others have put out there are essentially will complies at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. And just to add a little bit to the basin question, I know there was still some concern about the credit that we were taking for the basin. That's the large surface infiltration basin that's down at the corner of Stony Hill and Township line. So that obviously is an existing basin. We did some pretty extensive soil analysis of that area, conducted, I think, probably 13 separate test pits and infiltration tests, and they all yielded very good results for infiltration. So initially, that system in by itself is very effective, but the design actually calls for placement of 18 inches of an engineered planting soil in the bottom of that basin to help support the naturalized vegetation that we're proposing. So the combination of that soil and the underlying infiltration capabilities of the soil lends itself to not only the infiltration credit that we were granted, but also the ET credit that you get for that system through the worksheets.
So you just raised, you're anticipating stuff here. So the naturalized basin, that's something that the township and the EAC especially has been promoting. Can you describe the approach that you're using for naturalized basin? Because that's of great interest to me specifically.
So actually, Travis North, our landscape architect, is on this call. I actually asked him to opine because he specifies all of our plant material in the basins.
Okay.
So Travis North, landscape architect. The plant material that's associated with the basin is going to be made of a seed mix comprised of a mix of different native species that can survive conditions both wet and dry. We use the seed mix for that specific reason. They have root masses that get several feet deep. They'll easily be able to take up the water that's available in that soil, and they can thrive under these conditions.
So I'm gonna I'm gonna guess it's an Ernst mixed, an Ernst mix of some type. So I'm assuming it's going. Ernst is a seed company that provides mixes for just about everything. For those that aren't familiar with Ernst, is it when you look at this? I'm assuming it's going to be similar to what an emergent wetland type of species mix.
Not necessarily, because this is not technically a wetland. We're actually specifying a retention basin wildlife seed mix, and the reason we're using that is because even though this will get wet for long periods of time, we can also expect it to have drought conditions in the summer, and we need a seed mix that can adapt to both of those. If we use a wetland mix, we have to maintain water in that year round, and we don't want that.
Okay, but it is a wildlife seed mix, so you're providing you're attempting to provide some habitat there. Is that
correct?
Fair? That's a good thing. This is what we're trying to do with most of our basins in the township as we go through these. In terms of when all this is completed, I probably should know this, but who's going to have ownership of that basin and ultimate responsibility for O&M? Is that going to be the landowner, or is that going to be the township?
So the landowner will have ownership and operation and maintenance responsibilities for all of the stormwater systems that are shown on this plan.
So that's inclusive of all the rain gardens and all of any basins that are on this in their area. Good.
Correct.
That saves us the potential headache of trying to maintain some of these things. So that's good. All right, so you've covered stormwater, you covered the walking paths in detail. Those are all things that I was very concerned about and interested in. I just wanted to confirm again that there will be there's no longer request for the waiver for the tree ordinance.
That's correct.
That's correct. I'm glad we were able to come to agreement on that one ahead of this. That makes things much better. And then I only two more questions, I guess. In terms of the historic buildings, from a process perspective, and any, let's say, motion we make tonight on this one, and I know Mr. Truelove usually reads a long list of items when we have final site plan approvals and whatnot in here. In terms of the buildings themselves, would this be, in its interaction with HARB, is it subject to HARB's approval, or is it, recommending that the applicant works with HARB to come to some sort of agreement? I'm just trying to figure out the details of that approach.
I think it would be the latter. And to your point, I think from what Mr. Harris had indicated at the beginning of the presentation tonight, no vote or no, for everybody's benefit, no approval letter will be read into the record tonight. That will be done presumably on April 7th or whenever this rescheduled for the conditional use hearing. So that will be combined with the vote. But to get to your point, I believe it'd be follow the recommendations, and what most developers, and it appears that certainly these folks have done, is engage in a very interactive process to do that. So which is obviously encouraged. So
yeah, I'm just trying to protect against. I know they've made some great statements about working with HARB and the township on those issues. I just see how we need to protect ourselves, if at all. And then the last question, I'm not sure which image to ask you to pull up, but it's really in that shared open space area. In there, yeah. I think it's that area with I like the balloons, by the way. I think it's the area with the red chairs, if memory's near the circular stage, and the sails or whatever we call those on top. That I like those actually. Is that? And I apologize because this is my simplified term. I know that's not what you call it, but are you still pondering using the AstroTurf style cover there versus, say, a pervious, more hardscape looking area?
We are contemplating using a synthetic turf in that area. Of course, we'll continue to work with the township on the finer details of that, but we're envisioning that space as a multi-use, maybe in some cases used for outdoor exercise or something that would be, you don't really want to do that on concrete.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking concrete. I was thinking maybe more of a pervious cover that's not turf. So we still get some stormwater infiltration, but I've done a lot of things on turf. Not a huge fan personally, but that's nitpicky. But I would encourage you, from my perspective, to consider that. And then the very last thing, so if you staying with this picture, if there's this is not anything that I will push hard on, but anywhere where you may be able to get, and this image shows a bunch of trees, but anything where you might be able to get some more trees or some more shade, and you are showing some shade in this rendering based on the sun angle there, to the, I'll say from my perspective, along the path on the left side of it, in that area would be appreciated, just to add some more green cover there. But otherwise, I think, generally speaking, I think I appreciate the interactive nature of your presentations and how you've gone about the design and considering everything that our professionals, our staff, our committees, and the board have all asked of you. You've really came in with having done a lot of work, and you still have done a lot of work to keep it moving and to listen to the concerns of members of the township. So I appreciate that. Even if I have a few comments here and there that it may seem a little nitpicky, I do appreciate the effort. So I want to make sure that's clear. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dan. John?
Sure. So if you want to go back to the rendering of the new facade concept
of the multifamily building.
Yeah. So this is the new facade versus what was the old one, was the other previous slide?
Well, so this slide is just a precedent. This is an existing community that we did, actually this whole team worked on in New Britain Township. And the building type is the same, but we can make these buildings pretty much look like whatever whatever style we want. And in this case, we went with something that is more similar, both in color and in form to, let's see if I can, the retail buildings that we're showing here.
No, the reason I make mention of that is that was one of my asks. So I'm pleased that you've got some facade variation based on other similarly structured buildings in the area. There are similar buildings not too far from this, and that they look like the previous one that you showed. So this is certainly some benefit there. On the tree replacement fee, have we calculated what that would be exactly?
I can speak to that. John, not yet. They just recently submitted HOP plans for work up on the 332 on the bypass, which showed some tree removal, and I want those to be incorporated into the tree replacement count as well. So we're working with the team to make sure that those calculations are
Do you have a rough estimate of what the fees would be?
There we go. Somewhere around north of 200,000, probably 200, between 200 and 250,000, I think.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. And I'm pleased that you are going to honor our ordinances in that manner. A couple more questions along those lines. The Bucks County Planning Commission's review, a number of things they, had reiterated they had previously suggested, and throughout this process they were kind of punted to the aside. What are your thoughts on why you chose not to do some of the things that they suggested? Especially the sort of consistency with the overlay district concept and purpose, the perpendicular parking along the access way that's between buildings 5 and 6. What was your reasoning for saying no on those things?
Seth, do you want to pull up the plan?
Sure. Why don't I pull up a clean one? You pull up a clean plan. There we go.
So we can address at least the parking question. Primarily, one, that the parking is, the area that they're talking about is between the pharmacy and the 2 retail buildings just to the north of that. Primarily, that parking is first necessary to support those retail buildings, but it is opposite a right-in, right-out driveway. So that's a restricted access driveway. And it's not uncommon in most commercial developments to see a parking configuration consistent with this orientation. So while we hear what the Bucks County Planning Commission is saying, based on our experience in similar commercial designs throughout southeastern Pennsylvania over the span of 20 plus years, this is a very consistent design approach. and one that we feel is appropriate here.
And I'll take one of the other comments they made, which was they would have liked to have seen residential on top of retail, sort of the mixed use, the vertical mixed use. And look, my title is Director of Planning and Urban Design, and I'm all about that kind of mixed use, but it only really works in the right location. And to me, that urbanity, I think is the right word, is a little foreign to this particular area. I think this is more of a suburban rural feel. So I consider this mixed use because it's very pedestrian friendly and very pedestrian integrated, and with those linkages. But I don't think that having necessarily the residential over retail is something that would work in a situation like this. You generally need lots of much greater densities. Where you do see them work, you're talking 300-400 residential units over smaller bits of retail, at least for the newer stuff. And then, of course, you're in the city, you see that all the time. But I feel like this site doesn't really fit with that pattern.
Okay, and then along those lines, the Bucks County Planning Commission also mentioned sort of neighborhood open space for the folks in the 200 multifamily units, that area. They had concerns that there was not enough usable outdoor space for residents. What are your thoughts on that? Why didn't you seek to find a way to add more or structure things differently for that?
So I'm actually gonna stop sharing and bring up a different drawing, because I actually think we do have a good deal of neighborhood open space and space for the residents in that area. So if you just bear with me for 1 second. Okay, let me share now.
And while Seth is bringing that up, I'll remind everyone that the mixed use ordinance has a requirement that the neighborhood open space is 15% of the net buildable tract, which this plan actually exceeds. I think we're north of 17%. So the required open space for the overall development is sufficiently provided within the confines of the design presented.
So, so modern multifamily, sort of high-end, luxury multifamily communities, at least in this form, all have like a central clubhouse and an outdoor active space. In this case, we're showing a pool and a little recreational field. But there are lots of other opportunities within this particular plan for places like that. We have rooms over here, room over here, and room over here. And lots of little seating area opportunities in here. And these are sort of the concepts that we're still exploring when it comes to that particular community. We obviously have the walking paths, but you could see an exercise station certainly would actually be great right over here with access to this pathway, or even over here. The sort of the picnic areas, the bocce courts. Are all sort of very popular, and they're not very large. Even pickleball, which is not something I've experienced personally, but these are things that we're looking into in these spaces. So we think we actually have lots of space for that, and as Bill mentioned, overall we are above the requirements. And lastly, I would also say that I think this thing. I was really happy to see this come in, because I think that's an enormous amenity for the residents.
And if I might add one more thing, I know the Bucks County Planning Commission sort of thought that there should have been less open space in the commercial area and more in the residential, since it's for the residents. However, I always envision this project as not just the residents who live there, but the residents who visit the the retail and the restaurants, and they would like to have a little bit of open space. You go maybe eat and walk around afterwards, sit around in the courtyard and the open space. And so I think that's a good mix of how they have it.
Jim, I completely agree with that. I also think that from a residential community standpoint, if I'm a resident in one of these buildings, I would view that sort of that central open space in the main plan that's framed by the historic buildings as sort of my little park too. I mean, it's just a couple 100 feet away. It's very linked very, easily from a pedestrian standpoint. The whole thing is meant as one integrated community.
And if I can follow on a sort of a procedural question, I know that you're asking for a conditional use request. Is today preliminary approval with a final approval contingent on the conditional use request, or how, and the final draft of the letter?
You mind one?
Yes.
Well, if I heard Dave Truelove correctly, there wasn't going to be any action on the plan tonight. The conditional use hearings for the drive-through lanes on the bank and the pharmacy would be at the next meeting, which would be April 7th, and we would look for preliminary as final approval. Assuming the conditional uses are granted, we would be looking for preliminary as final approval at the next meeting.
That was my understanding too.
Okay. So since there's no vote, okay.
So we'll do a motion tonight, John, but there won't be any final vote tonight.
What's the motion going to be then?
Well, as the agenda item says, I would imagine that it would be to consider what I think is final subdivision and land development plan for Prickett Preserve. But there won't be a final vote tonight.
We can either do that tonight, or we can defer everything to the 7th. I mean, I think procedurally it's not going to make a huge difference, although it's probably easier to do it all at one time, especially anticipating the nature and level of public comment, and then, additional review. And the time basically for the applicant, if they hear things in public comment and from the supervisors that they want to make any adjustments for, they could do that in that interim as well. So just not that there should be, I'm just saying that provides that opportunity.
From our standpoint, I think as much as I'd like to have the motion and the vote tonight, I think it makes more sense to have the motion, and maybe Dave can write it up and I can have some input so that when we get to the meeting of the 7th, there's a hard something for everybody to look at. I think that makes making the motion, acting on the motion, just a little more compact and a little more straightforward.
That's what I was anticipating, yes.
I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
James, did you have anything? Going to take that as a no. Then with that, is any other discussion by anybody, any of the supervisors?
I'm not a supervisor, but we do want to run through the waiver requests. There are the 4 waiver requests, which will need to be considered as part of the overall approval process. So if the supervisors are finished with their questions, if I could ask Bill to review the 4 waiver requests and the reason for those requests, I'd appreciate it.
And I see you have something.
More of a, as you go through those waiver requests, if you, because we're going to have the conditional use discussion in the future, if there's anything in those waiver requests that would inform the conditional use discussion on the 7th, if you could point that out, that's all I want to make sure, so we get the full picture, just in case there's some influence there. There might not be, but I just wanted to see.
And for everybody's benefit, the requested waivers are noted on Mr. Pokel's most recent review letter of March 11th on the very last page of his letter. So just for reference point.
Sure, I'll go through them now. So waiver number 1 is related to the height of the light poles within the Wegmans parking field. The requirement is that lights be set at a 20-foot mounting height. We are proposing to increase that height to 25 feet. That will allow us to reduce the number of light poles proposed within that parking field and have a better, more even distribution of light within the parking field. The second is related to that, which is the location of light poles within that parking field. We have 4 light poles that are not located within landscaped islands. Those are located at the intersection of parking spaces and elevated, thank you, by a protective concrete barrier. And again, that allows us to have a more even distribution of light throughout the parking field. The third waiver is from the minimum dimension of 20 feet from parking to a building. And this is just in the commercial section of the development, not in the residential. And our distances vary from a minimum of 8 feet adjacent to the pharmacy. In some instances, it's between 10 and 15 feet adjacent to the retail buildings. In all other locations, we're providing 20 feet. This is provided, one, to maximize the amount of open space that we have within the central portion of the commercial development. And it has also been reviewed by the Township Fire Marshal, and that there is no concern from an emergency access standpoint to those buildings between the parking. And the last is for the removal of topsoil from the property. Obviously, with the proposed additional improvements on the property, it's impossible for us to replace all of the topsoil. So as a common request for commercial developments, we are looking to remove that portion that cannot be reused within the landscaped areas.
So that completes our request with regard to the waivers. And when it's time for action on the plan, we'd request that the waivers be approved for the reasons that Bill has just explained.
It should be noted too that we also discussed those in detail with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did vote unanimously to recommend those 4 waivers.
So Dan, I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, no, I'm the Planning Commission liaison. Mr. Reardon just said exactly what I was going to say, so that's all I wanted to point out for the record.
Thank you.
We have nothing further to present this evening.
Even though there's not going to be a motion tonight, it seems not.
I'm sorry. Wait a minute, Kurt. What were you going to say?
Dave can go ahead. He was going to bring up what I was going to make him talk about. Go ahead.
And this is actually a preliminary final plan request. It would make sense to have public comment tonight, given the gravity of everything, almost like they did with the sketch plan. Now, this is a sketch plan, but I think it's important for this particular project to have that vetting. And I believe the applicants are prepared for that tonight. From what it sounds like, they've already received questions from board members. So it would be appropriate tonight to have those questions. And then, there may be follow-ups necessary on the 7th, depending on what else is elicited, but that would be my suggestion. It's not the usual way we do it, but again, this is a project with the attention and with the scrutiny and with the amount of time spent by certainly the applicants, everybody else, that would make sense to do that tonight. So I'm just weighing in from that perspective.
So Dave, to put it into context, there's not necessarily a prerequisite that to entertain public comment that there needs to be a motion on the floor. That
not always, no.
Okay. So, and then just for the board's clarification as well, typically when a motion would be put on the floor for consideration on a project, that would also be accompanied with, as Mr. Harris had discussed, various other caveats of the project, like if you make reference to will comply with review letters, all of the various consultants, whatever, that memorializes all of that as a condition of the final approval. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes.
The only motion that I would ask for tonight at the appropriate time is a motion to advertise for the conditional use hearings at the April 7th meeting.
You beat me to it.
And I see you keep putting your hand up, and then so.
Well, yeah, that's what I was trying to get out there. And then no, I know we're going to have a hearing about it, but just we didn't really describe tonight for those watching at home what the conditional use requests are, in case there are some questions about it during public comment, just to point it out. But generally speaking, anyone correct me if I misspeak, please, but the conditional use requests are for the two drive-through facilities, one being a bank and one being a pharmacy. The pharmacy closer to the main entrance, sort of towards the center of the entire development, but towards the, I don't know, compass direction that is, but if the top of the page was north, then the eastern edge of the commercial development, the far end of it, and then the bank would be to the far left or the western corner, so it sort of bookends the commercial development.
Yeah, there's the plan, and Bill, perhaps you could point that out for us.
Yeah, I see Seth pointing to that is the location for the bank drive-through. That's at the northwestern corner of the parking. And then the second is for the pharmacy, which is located on the northeast corner of the pharmacy building.
And a quick question on the conditional uses. If for some reason, and I haven't heard anything negative about it to date, but if for some reason the board decided to not grant one or both the conditional uses, would that require, I'm assuming it will, a new submission or fundamental changes to your site plan?
The only change really would be in the bank area, where that green strip could potentially be converted to parking, but nothing substantial from a change standpoint because of the way that the design is oriented.
Okay, so the pharmacy it has that drive-through lane there. You might tweak that a little bit, but you'd essentially maintain the layout.
We would, yes.
Okay. Thanks, Suzanne.
Oh, of course, John.
Do you have a signed agreement for the pharmacy and or the bank? And if so, the brands?
We have a signed lease for the bank with JP Morgan Chase. We are close to signing the actual agreement with the pharmacy, but we do not actually have one signed at this point. We're several iterations through lease negotiation and about to sign it though.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion from any supervisors, staff, team? Okay. Well, then with that and without a motion, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Monica, is there anyone on the line?
Yes, Lisa is on the line.
Excellent. Lisa, could you please state your name and address for the record? Lisa, can you unmute yourself, please, and state your name and address for the record?
Lisa, you can press *6 to unmute.
Hello?
Hello, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, it's Lisa Tenney, 156 Pinnacle Circle, Morrisville or Yardley, PA.
Thank you. And what is your comment, please?
Well, I do urge the Board of Supervisors to consider preliminary yet not final approval of the Perkett Preserve because, one, it's there's no viable plan for the building of a safe pedestrian path over the Stony Hill Bridge. There is no 8-foot and nor 6-foot easement to provide any path. I don't know if anyone has walked over it, but I've seen it. And if there's two trucks crossing at the same time, there's no pedestrian that would be safe. And I've emphasized this on many occasions. So that's a concern. And also it is on a hill. So there is a sight distance problem as well with that bridge. And the connectivity at Edgewood Village is a key element for the true use of mixed-use zoning. And then if that's not built, then the zoning's intention is not met. And I've mentioned that to you all. The goals of the plan are not consistent with the master plan, although there have been electric fuel stations. The development for many years will not be eco-friendly. For many, many years, there'll be more carbon gases due to heavy car volume, use of electrical demands, and removal of photosynthetic plants, and an increase of waste water removal. And this is a question I'd like to ask the developers. Will the pool for the apartment be available for residents as well as visitors? Can anyone answer?
Lisa, when you mean visitors, you mean if somebody who's living in the apartment has a guest?
Well, let's start with the LMT residents, since there's an issue with making this project LMT friendly and resident friendly, and the usage of. So let's start with LMT residents. Can we use a pool?
No.
Okay, so that has to be taken out of the equation.
No, this is Bob Dwyer with Equus Shady Brook side of the development.
Yeah, thank you.
The apartments do have common neighborhood open space that will be usable by the general public, but there's also private NOS areas that, like the field behind the pool area, the pool itself will not be open to the public. But there are areas that Seth showed along the trail that could be things like a dog park. Again, we're working through those concepts. Exercise stations.
Okay, very good, but thank you.
Yeah.
And when you go for the final approval, make sure that, we all know what residents can use and what they can't.
Thank you, Lisa.
Oh, wait a minute. So also the lighting. Hello?
Yeah, Lisa, as you know, we have a 3-minute limit. So if you could wrap up, that would be great. Lisa, you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry, I ran out of time. But so the lights from 20 to 25 feet, there are concerns about migrating birds in the fall and the spring. So you're installing lights, and that's a problem. Also, I'd like to know, and this is a question, if a drive-through bank or pharmacy does not come forth, could it become a Chick-fil-A or a fast food restaurant?
Okay, well, thank you, Lisa. We're going to ask for some response if we can get some, and then your time is up.
Oh, well, those uses cannot be converted to a fast food restaurant. That's not a permitted use in that district.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Monica, is there anyone else on the line? Oh, sorry, Dan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, very quickly. There's been a couple comments about percent open space and whether or not that's meets our requirements and all that. I see Mr. Majewski's name there. I don't know if I don't see his face yet. But I'll give him a second. Thanks, Jim. In your review of the site plans and the percent open space call outs from the applicant here. Are you in agreement with what they are calling areas that meet the definition of open space in our ordinances?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure that particular item was addressed, because I've seen it on social media. I've heard it in the meeting before. We haven't really talked about that specifically in terms of percentages. So I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page with meeting the requirements. So thank you. Thank you, Suzanne.
Seth, I don't know if it's for you or for Bill, but could we hear a little bit about the lights and the way they work?
I can speak to the lights. The lights are going to be mounted at 25 feet, which is actually pretty common for this type of application. I'll be honest, I've never heard any sort of concerns about migrating birds with a 25-foot pole height. If the concern is that it's, well, I mean, honestly, I don't know how to respond to that. The trees surrounding the site are significantly taller, in the realm of like 60 to 80 feet tall. So I don't know why the lights would necessarily have any more concern.
Go ahead, Dan.
I can actually speak to that a little bit, Travis. You're actually going to have fewer lights by increasing the height 25 feet. So your overall, let's say, night sky impact will likely be less. So by using fewer lights, and I don't know if I know you've done, I'm sure you've done some sort of light study, just generally at the property line, but you're generally speaking, if you can have fewer lights at just a few feet higher, then your overall impacts to things like migratory birds or even bats or something like that, night sky issues would be reduced actually by using fewer lights than more. So, you're still adding overall light to the area generally, right? But versus if you were to follow the ordinance per se, you might actually have more light impacts to the area relative to night sky. So that's why I'm okay with what you're doing.
I'd like to point out the lights are also dark sky compliant.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Great. Thank you. Monica, and next caller, please.
Thomas is on the line.
Great. Thomas, if you could state your full name and address for the record, and unmute yourself, I guess, to do that. Is it *6, Monica?
Yes, it's *6.
Thomas, if you press *6 on your phone.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Would you please state your full name and your address, please, for the record?
Hello, good evening. My name is Thomas Kearney, and I live at 1473 Merrick Road in Lower Makefield Township. Thank you for taking my call. My wife and I and our family have lived in this township for over 23 years. We love living here. We've seen a great deal of change and development and progress over that time, and the great majority of that change and development has been very good. So based on my research on the proposed Prickett Preserve project, there appears to be many benefits for our township with this development. From what I understand in my research, we benefit from traffic improvements, stormwater management improvements, additional walking trails, which my wife is going to love because she walks the trails in the township constantly. We get significant additional landscaping, rain gardens, and additional tree planting. We have minimal to very limited maintenance responsibility by our township, preservation of the historical structures. The applicant has submitted a well thought out plan for this development. And one more thing that's very important to me, it appears that the tax revenue for our township is going to be a real benefit. I, for one, don't want to see my taxes go up. I, for one, living here for many reasons, and one of them is we don't have an earned income tax. If there is a true tax benefit, and based upon my research for this development, we're going to benefit from additional tax revenue, I'm all for it, especially with this really well thought out plan. My background is engineering, and I'm saying that humbly. This is a really well thought out plan and is a benefit for us. It's a no-brainer for this plan versus a prior approved office or warehouse distribution plan, which is really not a benefit for us. This is a really nice plan, and we get many benefits from it.
I urge the township supervisors, and you have a thankless job, so thank you for everything you're doing. I urge the township supervisors to approve this plan and to move it forward from application to reality so that we can all benefit from it. Thank you so much for taking my call. Keep up the great work. You're doing a great job, and God bless you all.
Thank you, Thomas. Is there any other public comment, Monica?
Yes, Michelle is on the line.
Excellent. Michelle, if you could state your full name and your address.
Yes, my name is Michelle Anthony. I'm at 1841 Windflower Lane in Yardley. I'm in the Flowers Field development, and I've been here about 3.5 years now. And honestly, Thomas just stole all my thunder because he said everything that I wanted to say. I am totally in favor of this development, especially with where I live. The idea of being able to walk over there, enjoy that open space, enjoy the retail shops, enjoy Wegmans, enjoy everything that goes in there, be outdoors, see improved traffic on Stony Hill where Shady Brook and this new development will be. I just think it's going to be a benefit to everybody. And while I understand that change is scary and a lot of people don't like change, I think if people can get past that fear, I think they would recognize the benefit of this development and how much it's going to bring to our township. I've lived here since the mid-'80s. I've seen a lot of change too. I've lived in various parts of the township, and I would just be thrilled to see this development add to all the wonderful things that we already have in Lower Makefield. And I encourage the board to move forward with this project.
Thank you, Michelle.
You're welcome. Have a good night.
You too. Monica, next caller.
There is no further public comment.
Okay. Well then, Dave.
Well, public comment is closed tonight. If there's any more, if there's different information to elicit at the next hearing, certainly at the conditional use hearing, there would be appropriate for the issues presented there. But unless there's other applications that are relevant to what we heard tonight, would seem to be repetitive at this point.
Well, Dave, do you want me to make a motion to advertise the conditional use?
I think it'd be appropriate, yes.
I think, yes.
Or do you? Yeah, sorry. So I'll make a motion to, and if I mess this up, Dave, please correct me. I'd like to make a motion to advertise the conditional use hearings for the Prickett Preserve development on April 7th, 2021.
Yeah, and what will establish the time to be starting no earlier than the 7:30 p.m. commencement of the township meeting that night.
What he said.
And what we'll do is we'll make sure a court reporter is here and all that we usually have to secure. Jim, is there anything else that we should have for that you can think of?
No, just for the general public's information. This will be advertised in the newspaper, and it'll be advertised twice. The second advertisement will be no less than 7 days before the meeting. We will post the information on our webpage and also be posted in the window of the township building.
Also has to be posted on the property, I believe.
On the property, right, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Fred. Any discussion? Yes, Dan?
Very quickly. The other thing I wanted to point out that I think Mr. Majewski did on the agenda, if folks didn't realize it, if they're looking at the agenda online, he did include a link to the application documents within. Of course, I don't have it open in front of me, but there's a what is it? A Google Docs, Jim? That is, if you want to look at something before one of these hearings, please take a look at it because it's really useful information. It has all the letters, all the drawings, etc., and is very informative. And it's available to the public. It's there it is. So where you see item number 15, plan number 670 in blue, and there parentheses. When you click on that, you can go to basically has every document you you'd like to see here that's been presented, and our review documents. So I've poured through all this stuff in a nice central location. So everything is available publicly in case you've heard otherwise.
And Monica, could you go back to the agenda for a second? Just a little off topic, but as long as we're talking about clickable, all the way to the bottom. We've been adding at the bottom of the agendas all year. These are also clickable, and you can click on them and join, sign up to follow us either through our email list or ReadyBucks or right to the website, Facebook. We have it all. Oh, that was Dan. So we're doing what we can do to try to make the access to information that much more easier. I do know we've had increased traffic to our pages, so I think that's a win. So hopefully people are taking advantage of what we're trying to put out there. John, I think I saw your hand go up.
So I want to we're advertising to have the conditional use hearing prior to the 7:30 meeting then.
No. It's just commence after 7:30. It's going to be at the meeting.
Okay.
I mean, within the meetings, and it would be, the conditional use hearing would be before any vote on the preliminary and final land development request.
So people who are interested in this, tune in at 7:30, April 7th.
Yes.
They get the conditional use hearing first, and then the vote would come, it would be part of the meeting.
And whatever is part of the agenda, wherever it fits in the agenda, but yes, that would be the order with those two items specifically, yes.
Okay. With that, I'm okay for advertising, so.
Any other discussion? Any public comment?
There is no public comment.
With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye and raising their hand.
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
night, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 16, public comment. Monica, is there anyone on the line?
There's no one on the line.
Okay. Item number 17, discussion items. Anyone have anything that we want to discuss? Then 18, we'll go to the supervisor's report. And that would be me first. And I want to say that I missed the EAC last week, and my apologies to them. I thought we had agreed that we were not meeting in March, but apparently I was wrong. So thank you for the team for forwarding me their comments, and I will see you in April. James, do you have anything?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Fred?
Only that the coming sewer authority meeting has been canceled and will be held probably in April.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yes, the Citizens Traffic Commission met, I guess it was Monday, days all mixed together. But one of the elements of this topic of discussion, which I followed up with staff, is about traffic around Regency South and Big Oak. There is a group of folks that we have spoken with in the past that are part of Regency that have concerns with traffic issues in the area and accessibility across that. So it's likely that they will be scheduled for an upcoming Citizens Traffic Commission meeting to have an initial discussion. Citizens Traffic Commission members discussed the issue at length. There was some push and take as to whether at this point we could actually do a reasonable traffic analysis because construction's not finished. We're still dealing with issues with COVID. So I sense that first meeting will be information gathering from the Citizens Traffic Commission as to the concerns from the Regency South people, but I don't know that they would necessarily have the tools to make a recommendation in short order. That's sort of open for discussion. The Trenton Mercer Airport Review Panel, at this point now, we've worked with Senator Toomey, Representative Fitzpatrick, and Senator Casey. At this point, we have letters out going out from Representative Fitzpatrick. We should have confirmation on the senators relatively shortly. Those are likely to go to the FAA administrator I've written one myself to the FAA administrator as well as to the commissioner of the New Jersey DEP, who Dan knows. So you can tell him it was a nice letter, a very nice letter. You saw it. So we'll be following up with them to continue that process. And that's all I have for update at this time.
I'm sorry, Dan?
Yeah, no, just waiting. I had a busy week last week. I had three meetings in a row, HARB, Historic Commission, Planning Commission. HARB, we talked about their primary item this evening with the Investors Bank sign. They also showed a site plan that we'll all be interested in for the houses at the Point in Edgewood Village. Preliminary site plan, so that should be going in front of us. I'm sorry, I believe Planning Commission and HARB next month, I believe. So we'll see where that ends up, but there were some interesting items there for sure. Let's see, Planning Commission, basic information. Historic Commission, Mr. Majewski, they brought up several issues about different bits and pieces of information that they may be reaching out for you for different data, or providing you with different data for various things that I think you have in the hopper, as it were, with respect to potential historic structures throughout the township that they've been looking at, generally speaking. And they've said that they may be providing you some information with respect to our ongoing our township property inventory report. I'll call it that. So you may be hearing from Dr. Hines or others on the commission with respect to some historic resources throughout the township as a heads up. And then for those interested, I think this may be round one of interactions with our friends at PICO. Kurt, thank you for setting this up. But Ted Duran from PICO, who's our regulatory affairs public outreach person, will be presenting to the Electric Reliability Committee at their next meeting on April 8th, 2021. That's the night after our next supervisors meeting. So we'll publish, we'll make sure the information in terms of how to get on that meeting is out there to the public. Should be some really interesting questions and information provided at the same time. Hopefully it's a productive meeting, and very likely will allow some good information to be provided back to this board, and hopefully a presentation by PICO to this board in the future after the ERC gets a chance to digest their presentation. So a lot going on with my groups here, thankfully. So that's all I have. If you have any questions, feel free to.
Do you know what time it is on the 8th?
7:30.
7:30. So 7:30 on the 8th, and we can put out the normal, it's going to be a Zoom meeting like everything else, so we'll put that out in the public as soon as we have all that information square.
And then item number 19, other business?
I think, Suzanne, is this the time that you want to talk about the appointments to the boards?
That's 20, but sure, let's go right there.
All right. I'm jumping an agenda there.
All right. Appointments to board and commissions. James?
Yeah, so I don't know if Kurt, you want to jump in on this or just kind of give some background of what happened with some of the appointees to the various boards with the transition of Barbara leaving the position. There was some stuff that fell through the cracks, and some people didn't get reappointed that were interested in being reappointed. I think that everybody that's part of that group as a whole, I guess I have to make a motion to say everybody that has been part of that group.
I can read the names if you want, Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah, can you do that, Dave? Just kind of give them.
Yeah, and as I recall, it's the ones who have responded affirmatively. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion would be to reappoint the following individuals to their respective boards as indicated. To the EAC, Sumya Dharmavaram, and I apologize if I'm butchering the name. To electronic media, Joshua Waldorf. To emergency management, Kevin Trieber. To emergency management, Jeffrey Gust. To financial advisory, Fred Childs. and to Park and Rec Douglas Kraus. And on the dates to begin when their prior terms expired, I think that'd be the appropriate motion if that's acceptable to the board.
So moved or seconded?
So James made the motion and John seconded it.
Thanks.
Excellent. Is there any discussion? Yes, Dan.
Real quick, there's a couple of these, one or two of these committees that were listed that we've had some discussions on in the past. I don't think that precludes us from reappointing people, but I don't know if that affects any of the reappointments tonight. I don't think it would.
If there's a reorganization, it would be effective at that point, but as of tonight, they are existing committees as they are. So I think it would be appropriate.
I have no issue with any of these reappointments. I just wanted to make sure we're no issues there. That's all.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Yep. Any public comment?
No public comment.
Great. All right. With that, to call the question, all those in favor of the reappointments, please signify by saying aye, raising your hands.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all so much for your time and have a good night.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.